Hey, everybody, and welcome. Today, I am talking to my fantastic client, Kelli Thompson. She is a current member of the Secrets of Storytelling Mastermind, and she's going to share a little bit about her experience. So, welcome, Kelli.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so excited to do this with you.
Me too. So I would love for you to share a little bit about why did you join Secrets of Storytelling? We didn't know each other beforehand. We were kind of new
No.
to each other. So how did you come in? How did you come into the mastermind?
So I was actually referred to another friend, but I had actually heard you before I even really know that was you because I was a fan of Dr. Valerie Rain, and I was listening to her podcast because she wrote the book Patriarchy, Stress Disorder. So I listened to her podcast, and she had a podcast with you, although I didn't connect the two. When you were talking about like finding and like owning your voice, I'm like, this is a really great podcast. And so then when my friend said, oh, you should check out this book, Writing Mastermind, it's with Brooke Adams-Law. And I'm like, oh, I just heard her on a podcast and it was so good. And so it was like this weird serendipitous like circle of finding you. And then I kind of heard you two places, but that's how I got here.
Yeah, so fun. And what prompted you to kind of join the mastermind? I know you had a book in mind, but why were you like, oh, that's going to help me sort of like go where I want to go, right? To get the book written.
Yeah. And I'll just answer it the same way you answered me when we first talked. You said, why now? Like, why do you want to write a book? Why do you want to join? And I said, well, ever since I was little, I'd always wanted to write a book. And every year that passed, I was like, oh yeah, I have that book writing goal on my goal sheet every year. And I literally got sick and tired of myself of not achieving it.
Yeah.
Just mad. And I'm like, I remember telling you, I cannot let another year go by where I haven't done anything on this. And I was really looking for someone who wouldn't just help me kind of like slap a book together, but like aligned with my approach to work, which is just really like listening to your body and giving you all the practical tools that you need to write a book. So that's why I joined, was like, I was looking for the right person to help me. I was looking to actually make progress on my goal and not get to the end of the year and go, oh, another year. It didn't happen. And so it all just came together, and that's why I joined.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that, because I talk to so many people who I'm like, well, why do you want to write a book? And it's right, this thing of like, I just always have wanted it. Right. And people say like, I have people in my community who have wanted to write a book for like 30 years, some of them. And I'm like, let's do it. Like, for the love of God, like what you just said, like, let's just like move forward on it.
I got sick of my own excuses.
Yeah. Totally. So tell us a little about your book and also like how it's evolved since the program started, right? So we're about 4-ish months in, so to a 6-month program. So how has it evolved since you came in, and what's it about?
Yes. So when I first came to you, I was proposing a book called The Clarity Effect, and the tentative subtitle was going to be How to Own Who You Are, Trust Yourself, and like create success on your own terms. It was kind of going to be a compilation of like some of my personal life experience, some of the confidence building tools I teach my clients, along with some of their stories. And then as we started to progress, I started to realize that like my book needed to have like a unique hook. And what the really unique hook about what I teach my clients is how to trust themselves. And so by listening to their bodies. And so in one of our one-on-one calls, which is awesome, is that the unique hook of my book was trusting your gut or trusting your intuition is your competitive advantage as a leader. And that was like a huge, like, oh my gosh, sort of moment.
Yeah.
So then I was like, okay, so now my book, called The Clarity Effect, is starting to get more clear, right? On like why it exists, like what's its reason to be. But then as I was continuing to write, and as you started covering like the different publishing pathways, I was thinking to myself, like, this book is getting really big, and it's starting to have like, I'm trying to weave in this trusting your intuition as your competitive advantage into all my other things that I want to talk about. And it's almost like the ideas were competing against one another. And I kind of had this aha for a couple of reasons, that The Clarity Effect was its own book. And there was actually 2 books in the book that I was writing.
Yes.
Okay. And that kind of evolved because of the first thing, which is I started to recognize that I needed to give like sole attention to this concept of trusting your intuition is your competitive advantage in business, and not lose it inside of some other things. So that was the first thing. The other thing that came up was you started talking about the publishing pathways. So there's, the self-publishing, hybrid, and then traditional book, agent, proposal, et cetera. And I was like, I want a book out like next year. Like I am out working with women, I'm running programs and speaking at conferences. Like I want to be able to give them a book in hand. And that was the other aha. I was like, oh my gosh, I think I actually have 2 books. I have one book, which we're now calling Closing the Confidence Gap, which is just strictly like 9 steps to close the confidence gap. It's what I teach in a lot of my programs. Like it's already a very cohesive and practical guide.
Yeah.
And it can stand alone without competing with what I think my bigger idea is, which is trusting your intuition as your competitive advantage. And that one, like I need to evolve still. And so I'm okay with waiting the 2 to 3 years to find an agent, pitch, all that, because the book will need to develop and grow and all the things. So I hope that's clear. But that's how my books evolved. It went from 1 book to 2 books. Don't let that scare you.
Yes.
It actually became a lot more clear. So
yes, totally. And I love this so much. And I just want to say that and I said this because you shared it in our group meeting yesterday of just like that part of what happens when you're really working on a book and you're really like in the creative process, you're really honoring the process, is that your ideas evolve. Like what you thought the book was about, like isn't, or like what happened for you is that it's 2 books. Like one person came into the mastermind writing a memoir, like a self-help style book, and it has evolved actually into a novel. And it's like, she's so much more jazzed and excited about it now, right? Like it's just sort of like all the lights went on, right, for her. And so being able to like let the project like speak for itself and sort of tell you where it wants to go, I think is something that's so fun to watch. And it's like, it becomes more fun to write, so you're not just sitting here being like, oh God, no, there's 2 books. Like you're not like sunk down under it. You're like more excited. So.
I feel more like it's like a relief.
Yeah. Because
like the 2 crystal clear ideas got separated. And because there's so much clarity. So my mantra is success loves clarity. Yes. Like when you have clarity, it's easy because you know exactly what needs to be done. So I wholeheartedly agree.
Oh my gosh, totally. I love it so much. So yeah, this is all what I teach, right? Is about listening to the book and then like letting it carry you where it wants to go. So perfect. Okay. So talk to us a little bit about like, what are some of the things you've learned in the mastermind that have been really impactful for your book and your writing process? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I already just talked about it, so I'll reiterate it again. The publishing pathways, like that was a huge aha for me. I actually used to work for an author. So I was only pretty intimate with the traditional publishing process of like the finding an agent and the proposal, and then just everything that comes with them owning your book and your limited amount of changes. And sometimes they want to take it a different, and like, so then like what was really helpful is like, you just laid out, actually now there's 3 pathways, because I only thought there was 2. I thought there was self-publishing and publishing. And I was like, I felt like it was like 2 evils. And so there's actually the 3rd pathway that you laid out, which is hybrid publishing. And so I think even that just provided a lot more clarity too, just to say there's actually 3 ways you can get your book out into the world, and just having expertise talking about all of those 3. And there is really no one right path. And I think in my case, it's that I might take one path for one book, but that's not going to be the right path for the next book. And that's okay. So then I would say the other thing that was super helpful for me was the structure of the book. And so one of the things that I think was really unique about you was you talked to us about creating a structure for our book. And you gave us like imagery or like a symbol. Like if your book was, written like, mine had like 3 overlapping circles in a diagram that I used to explain something, like how would your book follow along that? Or is there a metaphor that you can follow in your book? And so even just, I remember I had another huge breakthrough when you talked about like how to structure your book, because like I'm comfortable with writing. Like that wasn't so much like I needed to learn how to write or tell stories or write narratives or scenes or per se, but like when you talked about actually now here's how you structure this entire thing, it was like, oh, it feels like such a relief, because there's a lot of freedom when you define your structure, and that sounds counterintuitive.
It's so true.
but that was a huge like leap forward when I figured out the structure of the book. So
yes, I love that so much. And that part is based on something when I interviewed the best-selling author Ariel Lawhon. She's the one who taught me that idea of like, so she was saying her first novel is structured like a braid and her second novel is structured like a circle. And she explained like how, and I was just like, my mind is blown, right? So I teach that all the time now, but like also like, right. And I've come up with some other different structures and like some different examples to kind of illustrate it. But I do like think, like you said, there's so much freedom in structure because you're not just like wandering around like in the haze. You kind of have like something to hang your ideas on.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's like you have like something to grasp onto.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally. I love it. What would you say makes me different than other book coaches that you've seen or heard about?
Yeah. So I actually looked at a couple other coaches, to be honest, before I hired you, because I knew that I needed to write this book because I was sick of myself and my excuses. So I set an intention, like I need to keep my eyes open. And I did talk with other book coaches. And I think what made you different, and like I was like, oh my gosh, okay, this is the person I need to work with, is other coaches were very like black and white, technical, like let's just take everything that you have existing and like throw it together and self-publish it and do that. Like it was very like one directional, if that makes sense. Like it was just like, let's throw it together, self-publish it, done.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I guess if I wanted to like hurry things together and just throw things together, and if that was my goal, if speed was my goal, I probably wouldn't have chose you, because not to say we can't work quickly, but it wouldn't have been as thoughtful. And so the reason that, you know, what really set you apart was one, and you've already said it, is like you help us realize that the book can kind of write itself when you trust your body. Like I was looking, like when I started talking with you about like tapping into your intuition and listening to your body and listening to your creativity and really doing the creative exercises and recognizing that like things are going to evolve and change so that the right book comes out.
Yes.
Not just the book you want to throw together. Like that was really meaningful to me, because like, I don't just want to throw something together. Like you said it yesterday on the call, so these are your words. Like I wanted my book to have a soul.
Yeah.
And that was important. And I think just the final thing too was like, you're just really good at demystifying the book writing process, not only from like a structure process, but a publishing process, but like demystifying the process of like how your creativity kind of bubbles up and it like puts itself into words on paper. So that's why.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you, my friend.
You're welcome.
So last question is, what is one, so presumably people watching this video want to write a book. It's like, why else would you be sitting through this conversation? What is like, just from the experience you've had, like from the past few months of writing your book, what is one piece of advice that you would offer to people who want to write a book?
I think so much of it is mindset work.
Yes.
Because that continues to be the biggest struggle. Like the writing is not the hard part. Really, it isn't. Like, it's really not hard when you think about it to sit down and put words on a piece of paper. Because if you had to send a text, or if you had to write an email at work, or you had to like do that sort of stuff, like that stuff isn't hard. But I think what the really hard part is, and what advice I would give, is I would really start to just work with and deal with like your own inner critic, or as I call them, expensive thoughts, things that are holding you back, your doubts, and all the reasons why you can't write a book, because that's what's going to trip you up more than anything, is the own stories and the own junk and the own BS that's in your head. So writing a book is not that hard, but dealing with all of your inner critic work on, oh my gosh, this book is going to be so crappy, nobody's going to read it, people are going to pick it up and be like, this is the dumbest thing I ever read, or I don't know how to write a book, or I mean, that's the stuff. That's my advice, is work on that, because none of that stuff is probably true.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And I think this is one thing, right? Like part of the work in the mastermind is on that idea of like surfacing all those thoughts that come up and just like normalizing, like, this is just part of the process. Like, I think so many people like they get really excited about an idea and they start writing and they're like, I'm going to be done in 2 or 3 months. And that like, right. And then all those thoughts come up that you just said, and they take it as a sign that something has gone wrong. And now I should stop because my idea is bad. Right. And it's just like, just normalizing, like, everyone has those thoughts. Like, I still have those thoughts. Like, I have a published book. I still have those thoughts. Like,
Liz
it's part of
Gilbert
the
still
process.
has those thoughts. Like she writes about it. She's like, this is for sure going to be the trashiest book people have ever read.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It's literally just part of the process. So sort of like normalizing that, like you said, and then sort of like, right, like stepping into your author identity even before your book comes out, which I think is another thing that I really try to focus on with people, because you're right. It is such a big part of, it's not just putting words on paper. It's like all the mindset work and all the, it's really identity work as well. So,
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome. I love it. All right. Any last words before we sign off?
No, I just think that if you're considering doing this because you're serious about your book, I think that this is a perfect pathway to pursue. If you aren't just wanting to throw something together, like if you truly want to, like, you know, a year or two from now, look back and be like, wow, I really, you know, put something together that is a reflection of me and my gifts and my talents, and this book like surfaced from me, then I think that this is the perfect choice for you. And if you're open to being like surprised and let the book evolve along the way, like you're super supportive, and you know, the coaching calls are amazing, all of it. So you're there to support the entire journey, from like the mental to the actual typing of it to getting it out to the world. So
yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, my friend. And if you're watching this video and you want to join the next round of the Secrets of Storytelling Mastermind, you can sign up at the link below. So take care, everybody.